Welcome to my channel. I am Dr. Patrice Berry, licensed psychologist, and you all asked for me to talk about the Andrea Yates case, which is a bit of an old case. And then you all also asked for me to talk about Lindsay Clancy. And once again, I'm not here to diagnose, but I did want to talk a bit about postpartum depression, anxiety, and psychosis. Those are things that I don't think that we really don't talk about, and we don't prepare parents that, hey, after delivery, that this is an option, that some of these things can happen, and how to go about seeking support. And then also giving family members things to watch out for. There was another case. I don't know if we're going to get to cover that one. Deasia Watkins, I believe. And I saw a viral video about that one, and it is very, very troubling. CPS was involved with that case. And so if y'all want me to talk about that one, let me know. We can either do it here on this stream or I can do it on the next one. But first, let's start out with Andrea Yates. If you don't remember, this is a bit of an old case, and she was found guilty by reason of insanity, and she declined. I believe this article is from April of this year, but she could have had a hearing to discuss being released from jail, and she declined that hearing. And it's my understanding from this article that she feels that this is where that she needs continued treatment. And the incident happened back in June of 2001. I remember this one. So I was getting my bachelor's that year, and this was a national case, and everybody was kind of like, oh my gosh, like really people couldn't, because it was a very, very troubling case. And so she was initially convicted in 2002, and then later in 2006 she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. And I think the fact that she wants to remain in the hospital, I think that it sounds like she does want treatment, which is very different from the Letitia Stout trial, because I think Leticia, I don't know how to say it, but I think with that case, and I wish I knew her maiden name because Al does not want her to be referred, by that name anymore. But for Leticia, it seemed like she was doing the reason not guilty by reason of insanity to try to get out of it. Because if somebody is found not guilty by reason of insanity, there is a time period where at some point they can have a review to see if they continue to pose a risk to society. And thank you for this comment, because I agree. My heart goes out to the Yates family. The Yates family actually came forward. The husband, the ex, because he remarried, but the father in the Andrea Yates case, he came forward for the Lindsay Clancy one. And he doesn't think that she belongs in jail. He thinks that she belongs in a mental health facility. We don't know what happened. And so I think there's only been a preliminary hearing or something. There hasn't been a ton with that particular case, but we are just going to cover the articles that I was able to find on it. And at the end, because I have links in the description if you can't stay until the end, but I have some links about tips for postpartum anxiety. So postpartum anxiety is a real thing, postpartum psychosis. And so I do want to talk about those things. If y'all have questions, please let me know. But with Andrea Yates, she did decide to waive that hearing. And like I said, it's my understanding that she has said that jail is where she thinks she belongs. So now let's go on ahead and start with the Lindsay Clancy case. And this was just an article that talks about how, and this was her lawyer saying that he thought there was a chance she might not face trial. And this was from March 16th, 2023. I saw pieces of this arraignment. That's what happened. She was arraigned in around February. And she is paralyzed, I believe, from the neck down. And I also have the article that talks about her being switched to a different treatment facility. And the lawyers in this case seem to think that because she sent her husband away for a period of time to do the crime, they are thinking that she did it on purpose and that she is competent. Now, she definitely had some mental health things going on from where I'm looking. She had been receiving a lot of treatment. I think even her husband talked about the fact that, and this is for the Lindsay Clancy case, for that case, that, thank you, A.R. Jones, that I'm, I'm going back. Her maiden name is Harden. Thank you. And so Leticia Harden, thank you. But back to Lindsay Clancy, that with that case, that after her last pregnancy, that was the one that she ended up with a lot of postpartum depression afterwards. And significant anxiety after having a baby is incredibly normal. Thank you for sharing that that you had postpartum anxiety really bad, and any type of parental separations during that time. So after I am a mom, I have a 5-year-old, and he wasn't, his body temperature wasn't regulating the way that it was supposed to. And so they did have to take him to the nursery, which is nothing like, so there are NICU parents. I have lots of love and hearts for NICU families, because there is a bit, they limit how much contact and how much touch, because often there are breathing machines, there are all of these other things. And then also some people, so I work with individuals that while they are pregnant, they need to talk about their mental health, that while during their pregnancy they get significant depression or they get significant anxiety, or pre-pregnancy there was already some mental health concerns that we were managing, and then during pregnancy, they talk with their psychiatrist and their OB about what medications are safe for them to continue. I saw an article, I forget which celebrity, but there was a celebrity that was talking about being concerned because they have bipolar disorder, and then they were concerned about pregnancy. And I have worked with individuals that were able to get on safe medications, and they talked with their doctors, they talked with everyone about how to manage their mental health during pregnancy, and then also post pregnancy. So I remember at my son's, I think at his I think we had to go at like 3 days old. I don't know, like I think a day or two after we were discharged from the hospital, we met with the pediatrician, and then I think we met pretty regularly for a period of time. But they also screened me. They asked, so at the pediatrician's office, they were asking me questions about how I was doing, and I was incredibly sleep deprived. Like I was not prepared for just. And I'm a licensed psychologist. Lots of my friends have had babies, all of these things. And then I also, there was a physical recovery as well. And then for some people, postpartum, their brain chemicals, their body, everything is still adjusting, and they might need additional help and support. And it is my goal to normalize that there are therapies that are incredibly helpful, that there are, if people do need to look at a medication, and then once again, even if somebody is breastfeeding, that they can talk with their doctor about what things are safe, what things are not safe, and then also knowing that their mental health is so important. Hello to everyone watching. If y'all have questions, please let me know as we are talking. And then Karen mentioned that there was a tragedy about 6 months ago. The DA agreed with defense that it was postpartum psychosis, so it didn't go to trial. Yeah. And sometimes those cases are very clear that yes, that's exactly what's going on. With the Lindsay Clancy case, that's why I would love to hear from the treating doctors, because it's my understanding that she was on a lot of medications before the incident. I want to say it was like 13 to 15. Let me see if I can pull that back up. And that she had been on a wide range of medications, including some antipsychotics, and that I think she had been hospitalized as well before for having thoughts towards herself. And it really is a tragic case. But as a psychologist, I like to be able to have these conversations with you all. And so I'll just share this other article about her being transferred to a different hospital. Sleep deprivation and pain. Exactly, Claire. Exactly. Sleep deprivation and pain is not a good mix. And then a C-section brings on its whole other range of recovery. And then also, so as a Black woman, sometimes Black maternal health. Black mothers, there can already be this anxiety about the increased risk to not make it through pregnancy or to have post complications. And so there is a lot that can play into all of this. Let me just make sure. Yes, Amanda, thank you for sharing that. There are lots of people that take medications that are safe during pregnancy, and it ends up working out. I work with individuals that have postpartum depression, anxiety, a little bit of both, and also some people that have had intense thoughts after. And I think having a safe place where people can talk about those things, where people can seek treatment, and then making sure it a safety plan with the different family members. So I don't know that I've talked about this a ton on my channel, but I am not. So I try to limit the clients that I work with. I try to keep them from from going to psychiatric hospitals if we can, but sometimes safety is the priority, and the client, family, everybody is on board that we need to look at a short-term hospitalization. So hospitalization is not like a long-term treatment unless it's a long-term rehab program or it's a residential program, a program where somebody's going to stay for a long period of time. Normally, a brief, they call it like acute hospitalization. Those typically are about maybe 2 to 3 days to maybe up to maybe a month. And the main goal is to stabilize the person medically, is to get them okay enough to be able to discharge and continue with treatment. There are different treatment options depending on people's states, depending on where they are and where they're from. There is something called intensive outpatient, where a person goes to a hospital every day, but they go home about dinner time, around like 5 or 6 p.m. They end up going home, and they also get medication management, some types of therapy, and things like that. All right. And so, yes. And the Lindsay Clancy one, I just really wish that she had gotten the help and support that um, it sounds like she was really looking to get that, and that if somebody is having those types of thoughts, that they are informing their treatment providers. But the bad thing is when somebody is in that kind of dark space, it can be really tough to reach and assess. And so that I am watching that one closely. Claire made another comment. And if you ever have a comment you want to put, but you don't want me to put it up, just put like, for chat only. and I won't put it up. But um all right. And so there are medical conditions that can affect your mood. And so diabetes, thyroid issues, all of these different things, mental health and medical conditions, they can kind of play off of each other. Stress can have an impact on blood sugar. And so people making sure to manage is incredibly common. And then Ladybug, can you comment on how important it is for postpartum issues be brought up by OBGYN during prenatal appointments? Yes. And I think that's where, and I think prenatal and postnatal. So I think I went in for a checkup, I think it was a month after, I want to say, or was it 6 months? I forget. But I know I had a postnatal checkup, because sometimes prenatal, I think giving the person the information about, hey, here are some warning signs, watch out for these things, make sure to have good boundaries with family, reach out for help and support. I'm thankful that, so I was older when I had my first child, and so I only allowed a few people to come to the hospital, and then when people did come to visit, that they were helping with, laundry, and they were helping, don't just come and hold the baby. Like please let me sleep. And so and then I do wish that I had pumped a little bit more so that my partner could have helped out at night. So I took on nights completely, all the way up until our child. I weaned at 1, and that was the hardest year, I think, of my life ever. Like it was. And I tried formula, and my kid didn't. He's still, to this day, he is a very picky eater. But yes, and the best, what is it? I think it's like best fed, just make sure you feed your baby. However you feed your baby, amazing. I agree, AR Jones, that there is so much stigma attached to mental health that many people are embarrassed to talk about it. I totally agree. Because I think sometimes people don't realize that, like, hey, if you're having these kinds of thoughts, that I think it's somewhere, I might have to check those stats, what percentage of people qualify for, let me look that up, of people qualify for postpartum depression. Sorry. All right. And so with postpartum, good gosh, my allergies, I'm in Virginia, and my allergies are just attacking. Thank you, Janice, for sharing that therapy was not normalized in your household. And I wish that I had sought therapy when I was a lot younger. And my eyes, it's from the coughing, I'm sorry. I thought this was a really important topic. Yes, fed is best. There we go. That's what I was trying. All right. And so just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Lindsay had reached out to her doctors. Yes. And her husband did as well. They should probably, that insurance company might be, I would be surprised if that is true. If the insurance denied her any of her treatment, that is, I don't want to say anything that could get me in any trouble. That could cause a problem. But then what they would do is they would put it back on the doctors, because anytime insurance denies treatment, people can appeal it. So if your doctor ever recommends something and they go to apply for approval and it's denied, sometimes what can help is if you call to also talk with your insurance about why it's important and all those things. Sometimes it will not help. So I will tell you all, while I was pregnant, they found a cyst, and I had to get a sonogram, and I went for my appointment, and the lady took me to a mammogram room, and I was pregnant. I think I was 2 months pregnant. So I was like, I can't get a mammogram. The lady made a mistake. I was like, no, like my doctor's order specifically says I can't have a mammogram. And so they took me back to the main waiting room, and then they took me back to a sonogram room. Thankfully, it was just like it was just a fibrous thing. And so there weren't any big issues. But then my insurance denied. Like they were like, well, you could have got a mammogram. I was like, but I was pregnant. I couldn't have gotten a mammogram. And so I had to pay out of pocket for something that was medically already adding to a bit of a stressful time. Adding that on was just wow. So it looks like, based on the chat, that, oh, Andrea Yates. Okay. So they might have insurance denied Andrea Yates. Wow. I was not aware of that. And it looks like they might have also denied some things in Lindsay Clancy as well. And so And sometimes in some states, so Anthem, Health Keepers Plus, or not Anthem, just Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, private insurance, commercial insurance here in Virginia, they cover intensive home-based services for kids. I don't think they cover intensive services for adults. It's meant to avoid psychiatric hospitalization, but most people don't even know that that's an eligible benefit. And we have a sick care system versus a health care system. It boggles my mind. So this is one of my many soapboxes. It boggles my mind that healthcare in this country is a for-profit industry, and that people are making billions off of people being sick, and that really what insurance companies want is they want people to access their services as little as possible so that they get profit. They want them to pay for services that they don't end up using. Like, this is one of my many soapboxes. And it is so stressful when people, so sometimes I work with people that have a very large deductible. They have insurance, but they have huge deductibles. And the fact that the company that you work for gets to, so like the company you work for can change their provider before open enrollment, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that can impact the doctors that you can now see. It can impact so many things. I'm in the process because Virginia, Optima and Virginia Premier ended up merging, and I'm in network with Virginia Premier, but I'm not in network with Optima yet. I submitted that application because in order to continue to see my Virginia Premier clients, I now have to apply for Optima. And it's just like, and I was not aware. Now I might have missed the email. I might have missed an email, but wow. Yay. Hello, can't say. Welcome. And then I did want to note for Claire, because every country has different access. And in the UK, y'all have the NHS. I think it's National Health Service, and services are difficult to assess. So I started, my platform got big on TikTok first. And so I have a lot of UK viewers that would comment on some of the difficulties and differences there. I am thankful for what's happening here on YouTube and us being able to have these conversations. Wow. And so they wouldn't cover inpatient treatment. And then the sad thing is sometimes they'll settle out of court, or because but I think they might put it back on the hospital. So I worked at a psychiatric hospital. I did my internship at a children's psychiatric hospital for a year. I was on the inpatient unit for 6 months. And it was very, very difficult because we would often send kids out, and we did the best we could. We did what insurance would cover, but and I would really do my best to try to set them up with services post discharge, finding the right therapist, finding continued medication management, finding those different things. And but there were a few cases where if the hospital determined this case needs to stay, sometimes the hospital can take leeway to say, we are going to continue to battle for this one. Like, or the hospital agrees that, hey, we're going to just cover this one pro bono, which is thousands of dollars per day. Did you know that inpatient treatment is like it's like 1,000? I don't know. It's really expensive. It's probably between like $1,000 and $1,500 a day, because it includes the 24/7 monitoring, normally 15-minute checks at least. Sometimes at night, it might go to 30 minutes, but it might be 15 minutes for acute care at night as well. And so, yes. And somebody shared, especially after Lindsay's symptoms continued after several meds didn't help. And they do try to maintain people on an outpatient basis. But if she's continuing to have these intense thoughts, if she's continuing to be a risk to herself or others, that is where inpatient treatment truly is the best option. And she clearly was a risk for herself and others. And so let me go back to sharing. So she ended up, Lindsay Clancy was moved to a different hospital just wanted to share that article. I think it's this one. Let's see. I think it's this one. And so she was transferred to a new hospital, and she's continuing to receive treatment. I cannot imagine what she is going through. Um, and I don't know. So, because there seemed to be some confusion where some people felt that she did this like intentionally and this wasn't a postpartum psychosis type situation or like severe postpartum depression. I don't know enough about the case to be able to give an opinion one way or another, but the details are incredibly troubling. So now let's just share a little bit for information about postpartum depression. I'm going back up to the top. Sorry if that's making anybody. Okay, postpartum depression can affect up to 15% of people. 15%. That's like 15 out of 100. I could probably, yes. And so some of the symptoms can include emotional highs and lows, frequent crying, fatigue, and fatigue is just post pregnancy in general, but okay. Guilt, anxiety, and trouble caring for their baby. And it can be treated with medication and therapy. And so, postpartum depression is a type of depression that happens after someone gives birth. It doesn't just affect the birthing person, it can also affect surrogates, adoptive parents. It can affect multiple different people across that spectrum. Sometimes they call postpartum like baby blues. And that's just where somebody gets kind of sad after delivery, and that can affect 50 to 75% of people versus so this is a more mild form. So postpartum blues or postpartum or baby blues, that's about 50 to 70%. And then 1 in 7, that's that more clinical uh, that clinical depression that can happen with the frequent crying, irritability, fatigue, feelings of guilt, anxiety, and inability to care for themselves or the baby. And this was it Brooke Shields, y'all. Let me go back to the chat because I was watching the baby. I might have to do a whole nother video on that one. Oh, what was it? Pretty Baby, I think it was. Was it Brooke Shields? I'm bad with names, y'all. Yes. And she wrote a book, and I think that was back in like the 2000s or early or late 90s. I don't know, but she wrote a book about postpartum depression, talking about withdrawal, crying, not even being able to hold her baby. And it was her doula that recommended medication and seeing a therapist. And the book was called uh-oh. Uh-oh. No, I wrote down the name wrong because it says "Come the Rain," and I know that's wrong. And she felt that it was her fault, and she had rage, and there was a bit of this mommy myth that every mother is a committed, adoring, and loves every moment of being a parent, when that is not true. So when we talked on Mother's Day, I was like my best Mother's Day gift is to like get a day off. Like I love y'all every day, but like can I just have one day? And especially in households or families where a lot of the parenting duties are falling on one person. And I've gotten much better about asking for help, or because sometimes people will get frustrated because their partner isn't seeing that they need help. And then y'all know I was raised by a single mom, and so my mom, she didn't have anybody else besides she had some help from family. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation. So um, Mabel, UK. Here in the UK, we pay national insurance for our wages. We have national health insurance. The hospitals and doctors, yeah, because of that system. Sometimes it can be difficult for people to get care, especially when they're trying to use the National Health Service. And then sometimes you might get matched with somebody that isn't the right fit, which can definitely be difficult. Yes, I forgot that part. That Tom Cruise, a man, had the nerve to talk about like that postpartum depression wasn't real. Like it's like, dude, how many babies? Like he he almost made it seem like she just wasn't trying hard enough. Like it was and I forget if he apologized later. It was probably because of the blowback on his career than actually I don't know. Because I think that's kind of consistent with some of his other beliefs. Because I don't think he believes in traditional healthcare and those types of things. Yes, she did. So Brooke Shields, she clapped right back, and she did a really good job defending herself. But so if you do watch the series, I think it was on Amazon Hulu. I don't know what I was watching. It was either Amazon Prime or Hulu. It was one of those two. But there's a lot of trigger warnings for SA. There's a lot of trigger warnings for like children being so children being put in very compromising, difficult situations. At the end of that documentary, I thought it was interesting her hearing her daughters say that some of those movies that they aren't able to watch some of the films that she's been in. Yep. So Claire, I was talking around that. That's what I meant. Because of his beliefs, I don't see him believing in that. Yeah. Peg, I agree. And so I am a Christian, and I work with a lot of people that are also Christian, and sometimes they come to me with a lot of guilt and shame that they couldn't pray it away, that they couldn't, that they didn't feel like they had enough faith. And I try to help them within their faith tradition, because it's not my job to put my beliefs on them, but helping the client see that mental health is health. So most churches, there are some that don't believe in healthcare, but most churches, if somebody has diabetes, they wouldn't see anything wrong with them taking insulin, with them checking their blood sugar regularly, with them going to their primary care doctor. And mental health is health. And so checking in with a mental health provider, I think it's something that everybody should do. It should be something that's a lot easier to access. It is not easy. If you ever have difficulty with that process, sometimes you can ask in the comments. And so some of the resources I use, they're normally always linked in the description, but psychologytoday.com, therapy for Black girls, for individuals looking for a Black therapist, therapy for Black men. There is inclusivetherapist.com that's match people on a variety of different options and things. Because sometimes working with somebody that you can identify with, that you have some things in common, it doesn't automatically mean that they'll be a right fit. But sometimes it just helps somebody feel a little bit more comfortable with the process. And so we talked about postpartum depression, and now that postpartum psychosis. It's an extremely severe form of postpartum depression and requires emergency medical intervention. This condition is relatively rare. 1 in 1,000 isn't completely rare, but one in 1,000 people. And the symptoms generally occur quickly after delivery and are severe, lasting a few weeks to several months. And I think hers was months. If she did have that postpartum psychosis, and it can include feelings of severe agitation, confusion, feelings of hopelessness and shame, insomnia, so that difficulty sleep, paranoia, delusions or hallucinations, hyperactivity, rapid speech, or even mania. And in a different video, we talked a little bit about what true manic behavior is. Leticia was trying to fake mania, and that didn't go over well. Postpartum psychosis requires immediate medical intervention, and there is an increased risk of harm to self and others. And like I said, a lot of people are impacted. And when we talk about treatment, that's where so here are some more symptoms: feeling sad, worthless, hopeless, or guilty, worrying excessively, or feeling on edge. And then, because we're going to get into postpartum anxiety next. because that's a separate thing. Some people get a little bit of both. Some people just get one that's more severe. Loss of interest in hobbies or things you once enjoyed. Brooke Shields talked about just wanting to be in bed all the time and we call that anhedonia, like that's the technical term that we use, but like that loss of interest in things that you used to enjoy. Changes in appetite or not eating. Loss of energy and motivation. Trouble sleeping, and that's a hard one because like after a baby, trouble sleeping. That's a hard one, but yeah. Crying for no reason or excessively, difficulty thinking or focusing, thoughts, very, very those intense thoughts, lack of interest in your baby or feeling anxious around the baby, and then thoughts and then really those safety type thoughts. And so, with that difficulty bonding, so postpartum depression, if it goes untreated, so a parent's mental health can impact the child. And so that's why I work a lot with parents on managing, especially parents that are bringing me their child to work with. If the parent is not in if the parent isn't in a good place, making sure that we can help get them to a better place so that they can be at a place to help support their child. Let's go back to the chat. Let me see what I've missed. All right. Eventually, I'm going to get like a 2-screen setup where I'll be able to see y'all as I'll be able to see both. All right. All right. Her husband. Okay. All right. And let me know if y'all have questions. Now we are going to look at postpartum anxiety. So this article and all of these articles, once again, are linked down in the description. So this is from Harvard Health Publishing. Postpartum anxiety is invisible, but common and treatable. And so, all right, it can include feeling irritable, heart racing, and feeling panicky. And so we talked about that baby blues, postpartum depression, and postpartum anxiety. So some of the symptoms between postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, sometimes they can overlap. For some people, the anxiety is more significant, or if there was pre-existing anxiety, I've seen sometimes postpartum. For some people, I've seen that anxiety get even worse. Some people can experience things like panic attacks or symptoms similar to obsessive compulsive disorder. And regarding treatment, once again, they can take a look at medications. Can you take medications while you're breastfeeding? Those are conversations that people have to talk with their providers about. And so this article includes some non-medication strategies. And depending on the severity of it, that's where each individual has to see what works best for them. I do think partnering with the right mental health professional, so having a good place to talk about that, I think that can be helpful. All right, Amanda, are you talking about Andrea Yates in the small trailer? Oh, sorry. Okay, y'all are having a conversation back and forth, so I don't know. Do y'all have any questions for me? And so really, so anytime I cover cases like this, I want to make sure that I not only talk about what happened, but also give just relevant, accurate information for anybody that might watch and be experiencing some of these things. And so please reach out for help and support. If you have a friend that, just had a baby and it seems, but they're like sleeping all day, and not just like sleeping when the baby sleeps and recovering, but like it seems like something's not quite right, making sure to reach out about that. I'm going to figure out how to do a poll on here, but welcome, Linda. Thank you for joining. But do y'all want me to talk about the Deasia one? The Deasia one is kind of, so put a yes in the chat if you would like for me to talk about one more case of postpartum psychosis. I saw the viral YouTube video. It is difficult to watch, of the interrogation of this individual after the incident, and along with the 911 video. But it was very, very difficult to see. Yep. Yeah. So Claire, you were going to ask about this one. So let's talk about it. Share my screen. So I've trigger warnings. I've already let y'all know that like this case is difficult. And so Deasia Watkins, this is a mother in Ohio that it was her 3-month-old daughter. And what happened? So let me just give, for anybody that doesn't have the background of this case, what happened is in 2015, so she was not supposed to have access to the child. CPS was involved. I believe there had been like a minor like there had been an issue, and custody was taken from the mother and the father, and she was not supposed to be around the child at all. They ended up placing the baby with an aunt, and with the aunt let Deasia move in, and was pretty much, I guess the aunt had major medical issues and she couldn't watch her all the time, and she wasn't able to fully care for the child. And this aunt is gonna have grief. And if you watch that viral video, the aunt ends up saying very just like, how is she going to live with knowing that this happened while she was asleep, while she was there? And she was the one that allowed Deasia to come over. No, so this isn't the microwave. Nope. And so, sadly, what seems to have happened is the aunt her was having issues with her eyes or something, and she went to sleep, and Deasia was supposed to watch the baby. The baby slept in Deasia's room, and Deasia was having postpartum psychosis. And I think she was hospitalized, but she was definitely, the family was aware that she had postpartum psychosis, and they were supposed to be making sure that she took her medication. She was not taking her medication the way she was supposed to. And they were supposed to be making sure that she didn't have unsupervised contact with her child. And the hospital didn't think that Deasia understood the seriousness of like what they were saying and all those things. And so what ended up happening is Deasia, the baby wouldn't stop crying. And so she ends up like, the child ends up with blunt force trauma. Like I think she tries to hit her with something, and then Deasia then takes her to the kitchen, and that's where the child, and then she puts the knife in the child's hand so that the police will think that the 3-month-old did it. And in her interrogation, she actually kind of seemed to allude that her aunt might have done it. And it's a very, very troubling thing. Very, very sad. I watched the entire, I think the video has like 2 million views. I don't know, but there's a video, of parts of the interrogation and everything. And it was just very, very, very difficult, to watch. And she pretty much just said that she didn't seem to have any remorse in that moment. Looks like she was found guilty. Excuse me. I'm surprised they didn't charge the aunt as well, because the aunt was supposed to keep that baby safe. Let me see if there are any other details. Excuse me. And so, yeah, she later told police that she did that so people would think, yeah, she left the knife in the hand so that she would think that the child did it. She was already considered a threat to her child because she had been talking about demons while in a juvenile court, and not in like but not in a but like it was a bit of a psychotic, concerning way. And once again, that's just another case where um, if the family had intervened and made sure. So when courts step in, when people step in, because now there are other cases, because I remember a case of a family driving through a particular state, I forget which state, and all the kids ended up being, I think like 5 kids ended up being placed in foster care for no good reason. That is not okay. Um, excuse me. But this was a case where she clearly was a risk and a danger. And it was Tennessee to Georgia. Exactly. Yep, that particular case. Thank you, Amanda. And so the scene was so outrageous. So what happened was, I think a cousin came or something, because the aunt's son, I think, came to the house, and he saw what he saw, and he's the one that called 911, and 911 was like, what's going on, and Deasia still has on her, there's blood on her clothes, and she's just sleeping in bed, and ugh, very, very, very concerning. But she did not bring mental health in any way, to my understanding, and she was she was found guilty and sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. And that was back in 2017. And so, very, very concerning case. Her cousin with his kids, and one of the kids saw the baby. Wow. Wow, Claire. Because I knew it was him, and it sounded like there were some other people in the background as well. I just saw the other video, I think about sometime this week, I think. And that's why I added it to this list of cases to talk about today. Just so if somebody is struggling and having difficult thoughts, um, that they will just reach out and get help and support to make sure that everything's okay. And if somebody is having postpartum depression, sometimes there are therapists that are specifically for people recovering. And I think they call them like perinatal therapists, something like that. I follow one over on Instagram. And like that's her entire practice, is just helping parents after they have children. I've made it just a part of my general practice, where sometimes I've worked with people that have had their own postpartum depression, anxiety, and other just general tips for moms in general to stay away from mom guilt and comparison and all those things, is that every kid is different, and what works for one person isn't going to work for somebody else. And whatever that individual parent needs, whatever that family, that child needs, because sometimes we can compare. We can think, oh, wow, they cook dinner for their family every night. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not, nope, I'm not. Every night? Nope. If that works for them, yay. But that's not gonna work for me. And that's okay. But just wanted to cover those. If y'all do have any last questions about postpartum depression, anxiety, psychosis, my next thing that I think I want to cover next Saturday is Lori Vallow talking about religious trauma. And I don't think, because with her case, I'll just give some general psychological impressions. I can't talk about her because I don't know what her diagnosis is, or any of those things. But with her case, I do have some experience working with people that have come out of cults or come out of unsafe religious communities, and I just want to share, like, hey, what are some red flags about a community? What are some things? And I'm gonna prepare that video for, I think, next week. It was right before Mother's Day. It was like there were a whole lot of juries that found parents guilty. Another case that I was covering, I don't know if I'll talk about it here. If y'all want me to talk about it here, let me know. But it was the 2 adoptive boys what were, because their parents were just found guilty. I think it was in California. Yes. Orrin and Orson West. Yes. And so if y'all would like me to cover that case specifically talking about adoption and maybe even a little bit about foster care. Yeah, the West, exactly. Yes. And so that one might be another one that I talk about from the perspective of being an adoption competent therapist. There were some red flags with that family. Yes, Orrin and Orson. Yes, yes. And so I will. So Tuesday, I already have a live scheduled for 12 p.m. Eastern. I'm bringing on a friend of mine, Tika. Tika, she is a licensed clinical social worker, and we are going to just talk about mental health. And so I'm just glad that we'll get to have that conversation. And so Christina asked a really good question: how long can postpartum depression last? And so sometimes postpartum depression can sometimes trigger, sometimes it can kind of go into major depression for some people. But let me just, because for every individual, it's different. I know I've seen it for up to possibly 4 weeks, months. Um, some people may have symptoms that last for years. Years is less common, but it can happen. And that would be where somebody didn't have depression prenatally. They didn't have any depression, and now post pregnancy they have this ongoing depression. And and then at some point, we just try to figure out, is this just major depression, postpartum turned into major depression, or is this still postpartum? And I've worked with some people where the hormones of pregnancy were part of what helped stabilize their mood, was also getting their estrogen and progesterone levels checked, and making sure that their hormones were at the right levels. They didn't have an iron deficiency. That, like, sometimes there are all of these things that can impact our mental health. And so making sure that there's not a thyroid issue, or that, because thyroid issues can sometimes present like depression, but it's a completely different system. It's a completely different issue. And so Turpin case, I have not covered that one, and I am bad with names. And so Turpin, it looks familiar. Ooh, wow. I remember this one. And that was another adoption one. And so let me add that one to Orin to the West and Turpin case. Let's add those together. Turpin and West case. All right. We will likely look at that next Saturday. So I'm gonna take my kiddo to a, like we're gonna go to a Memorial Day thing, and then it'll be my goal to stream after that. I will post to the community tab if that live ends up getting canceled. But we should be able to do it. Yes, we should. Um, and so yeah, Janice. Yep. And so I've seen that happen where somebody's postpartum turned into major depression. And yes, so glad that we were able to have this conversation. Um and so if somebody was still having symptoms, so there's also something, uh grief. So for anybody that's experienced and I'm just going to, so anybody that's experienced a miscarriage, or stillbirth, any of those kinds of things, that is a different type of grief. And that's, and an individual can get postpartum, but it's on top of traumatic grief. It's on top of that loss. I do have it's scheduled to talk about grief. That might be, I think that's in a few weeks. So I try to plan out the content. Let me see when grief is. Ah, I think that's okay. Looks like grief is in 2 weeks on that Tuesday. And I will add infant child loss to that one. We can definitely have those conversations. Okay, Andrea. Um, oh, hey Janice. I'm definitely telling my daughter, who is perinatal mental health counselor. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to be going live with somebody on TikTok at 11 a.m. next Tuesday. But y'all don't have to, if you're on TikTok, sure. If not, I'll see y'all here at 12, where I'm going to talk with Tika. There is a friend of mine made an anxiety card deck. And so we're going to talk about that over on TikTok. I recorded an unboxing of it, and I might put that up here. I haven't figured that out yet. Yes, I'm glad to have safe spaces to have these kinds of conversations, because I think for a while a lot of people suffered in silence. But thank y'all so much for joining. Claire, so glad you're here. Frank, definitely gonna talk about that. Might be in 2 Saturdays. Like, am I doing anything? I think I might have something that's. I might have to do that during the week. Let me see. Maybe on the 1st, we might have to do Warren West if I don't have clients at that time. So I might be able to do that one. I might do 2 during the week lives that week. But please sub and continue to, because if you're commenting, I know that you subbed. If you read WAPO, see the article on the Florida mother. Ooh. Oh, I saw that one. She had to, is that the one where the baby lived like 99 minutes, or I don't know, was, because there are some really tragic cases coming out of states that have made certain bans. I am a LGBTQ friendly, pro-life. I am all those things. I think therapy is political. And so you should be able to ask your therapist, like, hey, where do you stand? Because if I was in a state that was limiting women's rights, I'm in Virginia. So far, we're okay. We'll see what happens. But I would do what was best for my client, and then have to talk to my ethics board about what was possible. Florida has just been, and I have 2 vacations this summer scheduled to Florida. But they have just, because they did the diversity funding ban, they've passed a lot of problematic trans bills, and just Florida has been doing the most. So glad to be here. I hope y'all have a great rest of your weekend. I have people that are visiting downstairs. I'm going to go say hi. Stop being rude. I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day.